It is ironic, interesting, and intentional that we dedicate 100 years to the day, the restoration of this fountain, on the very same spot where it was dedicated a century ago. A century ago, 1899, July 8th, the Bronx, this part of the Bronx was largely German and German Jewish. The odyssey of this fountain was interesting as well. Rejected in Dusseldorf, rejected in Central Park. You see, these Lorelei weren't properly clad for the times. So what did they do? They figured the Bronx would be able to handle all this. And they were right. And they were right. We are, after all, a very liberal and open-minded people. But there's a more serious history to this fountain, and its odyssey was launched on the currents of the anti-Semitism that played an enormous role in sending it from place to place at a time when there was no will to acknowledge the work of the Jewish sculptor Ernst Herder, nor pay tribute to Heine himself. Originally Jewish, Germany's most acclaimed artist, whose work was denigrated because he was a political and social dissident. In short, he was a lot like us in the Bronx. So he should feel right at home in his new place in the neighborhood, the highest point of this community, even looking down upon Yankee Stadium as it should be. But this is more than sprucing up an old statue, but it's a statement about this community. It's not only a rebirth of this corner of this park, but a rebirth of sorts for artistic expression and religious freedom, which has been stifled throughout history, even persecuted due to political and social currents in every corner of the world. The ascension of one group or party should never be at the expense of another. And here in 1999, we in the Bronx reinforce and rededicate ourselves to those principles, those liberating democratic principles of equality and diversity. It is appropriate that this monument to Heine, this Lorelei fountain, which was once, 100 years ago, dedicated in a largely German and German Jewish neighborhood, now be rededicated a century later in a largely Hispanic and African American neighborhood. It says a lot about who we are, who we wish to be, and how we wish the rest of the world to regard us. I'm very proud of all of our partners and collaborators in this wonderful restoration. Indeed, it has become the new emblem of our revival, and that's important. Thanks.
I'd like to introduce the representative of the city of Heine's birth, the Bürgermeister of the Landeshauptstadt of Düsseldorf. That's like the mayor to us, and his name is Honorable Wolfgang Scheffler.
Mr. President of the Bronx Borough, Mr. General Consulate, Mrs. and Mr. Kellen, council members, commissioners, ladies and gentlemen. When I stood here on the other end of the Joyce Kilmer Park 2 years ago, on a very hot Saturday afternoon with a thunderstorm coming afterwards, and waking our party up at that time, I told you, the audience, and when I have a look around, I can see many of the people I met at that time once again today here. I told you that the Lorelei Fountain's history is indeed no glorious chapter, concerning the effort to honor Heinrich Heine's works and person. You all know that in the light of the poet's 100th birthday in 1897, the city of Düsseldorf intended to honor Heinrich Heine, who was born and grew up in Düsseldorf, with a memorial. The Empress Elizabeth of Austria, who used to be an ardent admirer of Heine's works, wanted to do a favor to the city of Düsseldorf and engaged Ernst Herter to design various outlines of a Heine monument. Unfortunately, powerful political right-wing groups in the Prussian government at that time prevented the erection of the Lorelei fountain in Düsseldorf. The conservative political tendencies and attitudes at that time stood in sharp contrast to the unprejudiced discussion with Heine's works. At that time, liberal America was more able to honor the memory of Heinrich Heine than Germany and Düsseldorf could do then. Because of the initiative of the German Choral Society Aryan and with support of the Park Commission and the Municipal Art Society of New York, the fountain was finally erected and opened in the Bronx on 8th of July 1899. According to this, I'm really glad that today, exactly 100 years after the erection of the Lorelei fountain, the people of New York do celebrate the new erection, you told rebirth, of the restored and renovated fountain to emphasize the importance and the cosmopolitan figure of Heinrich Heine. And I'm glad too that it's my part today to give you all the regards and wishes and thanks of the people in the city of Düsseldorf. We are very proud to be the hometown of this famous poet and author, and we showed it at Heine's 200th birthday in 1997 by presenting an all-year-long arrangement beginning in February 97 and lasting until the 13th of December 97, Heine's 200th birthday. All the events at that time were realized through a mutual commitment of the city of Düsseldorf, of business companies, foundations, and the government of North Rhine-Westphalia. And they all had the leitmotif that Heine belongs as a poet to the whole world and should therefore be celebrated as an international author and poet. The people of Düsseldorf, the council and the administration showed their different views of celebrating Heine as it showed 100 years ago. Today, on the 100th birthday of this Lorelei fountain, I'm very grateful to the city of New York and the Bronx borough for taking the Lorelei fountain and with it the spirit of Heinrich Heine 100 years ago. The preservation of the fountain is finished now. A restored and freshly renovated Lorelei fountain is now a highlight of the Joyce Kilmer Park in the Bronx. My very special thanks belongs to the city of New York, the president of the Bronx borough, Mr. Fernando Ferrer, the Municipal Art Society of New York, the Stephen and Anna Maria Kellen Foundation, and last but not least, to Mr. and Mrs. Schädler Klaas and all the people from the Heine community and all the Heine friends in New York, in America and in Germany, who are more than 15 years are working on it, that this day today will come. And I think all they were one successful initiative, and I thank for all the necessary financial support for preserving this fountain. Now I'd like to wish you all, as friends of the Lorelei fountain and friends of Heinrich Heine, a lot of fun for this mutual fountain party, together with our Düsseldorfer artists, and I hope very much. You told Mr. Ferrer it's a rebirth, but I think it's possibly a beginning of a second beginning of a wonderful friendship between visiting people visiting this fountain, visiting the Bronx, and the Lorelei fountain on the other hand, and the Bronx on the other hand. I think this is a great day for the Bronx, it's a great day for all of you here, and I wish a very nice day for you. Many thanks.
That was a wonderful speech. Thank you very much, Mayor Scheffler. We're going to present you with the park name Düsseldorf in honor of the city which you lead. And you were fire, you were dynamic, you were terrific. Imagine what he sounds like in German. To acknowledge Professor Dr. Joseph A. Kruse, who is director of the Heinrich Heine Institute and Museum in Düsseldorf. Dr. Kruse, wonderful.
And now a piece behind him with music by Robert Schumann, with Katja Plessing as mezzo-soprano and Tobias Truniger on piano.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kellen, Mrs. Kellen, and thank you for your generosity in making this possible and in bringing everyone together.
As a lifelong lover of Heine, it gives my family and me great satisfaction not only to be here today, but to realize that today Heine is recognized around the world as a great poet and a very wise man. This was hardly the case during his lifetime. In his homeland, Heine was held in great disfavor and widely disapproved of. But this is often the fate of artists and of others who are perceived as different. The fact that Heine today is universally revered and respected is perhaps an important lesson for all of us. While we honor Heine's memory and his genius on this anniversary, we ought not to look solely to the past. We must look to the future. It is my hope that this restored monument, which sparkles so brightly today, will be a reminder to New Yorkers of the 21st century that as citizens of a global village, we must all respect each other and embrace our difference if we are to flourish as a people. Because our differences in the final analysis are insignificant compared to what we share with what unites us as human beings. This, I believe, is the best way to honor Heine's memory and to meet the challenges that he set for us. Let me end with the words, remember the past and imagine the future.